Hey, you know what? That was a pretty good week in pro wrestling. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with episode 403. We've got a lot to talk about this week. On the menu tonight, we've got some huge news on this year's WWE Hall of Fame. We had the Great United Kingdom tournament that took place on the WWE Network this past weekend. We had an unfortunate, or depending on how you look at it, not so unfortunate wrestling death. And we had two loaded shows with Raw and SmackDown leading up to the Royal Rumble. And of course, it's WrestleMania season. And we have a lot to talk about as far as the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania go. The return of Brock Lesnar, all sorts of stuff going on. So I'm not going to waste too much time here. Let's dive right in. We'll talk about a few things before we get into Raw and SmackDown, and of course the big news of the week was that the first inductee to the WWE Hall of Fame 2017 class was announced, and it is the headliner. And this year, of course, it's none other than your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle. I could not be happier. They broke this news actually on Monday before Monday Night Raw. I was actually working all morning and all afternoon up until Raw started, so I was getting a ton of tweets from all of you guys saying, Angle, 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 and I was thrilled. I was really hoping this would be the year. I thought maybe they would hold it off till next year, and I'm certainly not complaining about seeing him a little bit early. And Kurt's been telling people that he's been in contact with the WWE and that he's coming back, but Kurt says a lot of things sometimes, and we don't tend to believe him, but it is in fact true. Kurt's coming back, and he'll be the headliner. I just released my top 10 favorite wrestlers ever, and he's on that list. I have the utmost respect for Kurt Angle. It amazes me that he's been gone from the WWE for as long as he has. What is it now, like 11 years? He left in 2006. I mean, he spent more time in TNA than he did in WWE, which raises really interesting questions. Like, what is he going to do when he comes back? Is he going to have any interaction on TV, or is it just the Hall of Fame? What kind of video packages are they going to make for him? 60% of his career took place in another promotion. That's going to be tough to do. Who's going to induct him in the Hall of Fame? I've got a whole bunch of candidates for that. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I really hope that Kurt Angle makes some appearances on Monday Night Raw. You would think that he's got to come back and interact with somebody, maybe deliver a few Angle slams, or maybe put somebody in an ankle lock or something like that, just to give them some current Kurt Angle in WWE footage and something that's not 11 years old. I actually laughed because I saw on Twitter that Lana had kind of tweeted Kurt Angle a little bit of a warning about Rusev and that he might be crushed or whatever. And I'm just laughing because I'm like, Jesus, poor Rusev took the jackhammer and the spear, and then he came back and he's interacting with Shawn Michaels, and now he's going to probably be put in the angle slam or the ankle lock by Kurt Angle at some point. So I have a feeling if Kurt does make an appearance before WrestleMania on WWE TV, that he will have some sort of a segment on Raw with Rusev. I'm actually hoping Rusev will be spared, because the one problem with having Kurt Angle do something in the ring is that how do you decide which brand gets to claim these Hall of Fame inductees? Because who says Kurt Angle has to make an appearance on Raw? Why can't it happen on SmackDown? They're supposed to be equal brands, right? And if you look back on Kurt Angle's career, his biggest moments took place on SmackDown. He was a SmackDown guy. So I think, in my opinion, if Kurt Angle is going to come back and do anything, he needs to come back and do it on SmackDown. But that's probably not the way WWE thinks. All the other news pertaining to him, they can announce it anywhere they want. At some point, they're going to have to announce who's going to induct him. It could be anybody, really. When you look at the WWE's roster, you can make an argument for Triple H, because Kurt Angle had some of his first big matches and first big storylines with Triple H, and for that matter with Stephanie. She's another person that can induct Kurt. We all remember the Love Triangle storyline back in 2000. I was actually there live for SummerSlam that year to watch Kurt take on Triple H and The Rock in the main event. Speaking of The Rock could come back and induct Kurt Angle. Why not? What bigger star to induct Kurt Angle than The Rock? They have history. Kurt Angle won his very first championship against The Rock, and The Rock could be a really good choice. I'd have no problem with that at all. They could go in the TNA direction. I highly doubt it, but they could. I mean, you think about AJ Styles. I mean, Kurt Angle could come back and still have a match with AJ Styles to this day. He actually said that in an interview. So hopefully WWE will let Kurt Angle wrestle at some point. Maybe just one match, not full time, not on the road, nothing like that, but maybe do something in the ring. I think would be really cool. Maybe even at WrestleMania. I mean, if there's one guy that's capable of wrestling and being put in the Hall of Fame on the same weekend, it's Kurt Angle. If Ric Flair did it, Kurt Angle could sure as hell do it. So I wouldn't rule that out completely just yet, although we'll probably learn a little bit more here in upcoming weeks. They could also have Sting induct him because they have history from TNA. And what about Samoa Joe? Kurt Angle made his debut in TNA with a confrontation against Samoa Joe, did he not? So there's lots of guys with TNA ties and with WWE ties that can induct Kurt Angle. But at the end of the day, my money is actually on somebody else. My money is actually on John Cena. I think John Cena is probably the guy WWE will have induct Kurt Angle because of their history. Don't forget, John Cena showed up into the WWE by confronting Kurt Angle and the whole ruthless aggression thing, and he looked terrible, and he had that spiky hair and those weird short little trunks. The very definition of the word vanilla, and he got his start against Kurt Angle and put up a good showing and got props from The Undertaker, and they pushed him a little bit more. He started rapping. He was Thugonomics, US champ, turned him babyface, world champ. 15 years later, he's one of the biggest stars this business has ever seen. So I think John Cena could be, right now, the leading candidate, I think, to induct Kurt Angle, and my money's on him. That's not necessarily what I want. Don't misunderstand. I'm not hoping that it's going to be Cena. I just have a feeling that it will be. But whoever it is, I just kind of hope it's one of those names that I mentioned. I don't want to see it be somebody random. I want it to be somebody with history with Kurt Angle. I didn't like it when they put Hogan in and they had Sylvester Stallone induct him. You know, Stallone's great, and I know they did the Rocky movie together, but there was so many other guys that had so much more history with Hogan that would have been a better person to induct him. So I hope they don't make that type of mistake with Kurt Angle, and they make sure that his inductor is somebody that has some significance or some ties to Kurt Angle and his wrestling past. And you know what? I'll throw out one more name. What about Jim Ross? Why not? JR. At the end of the day, I still don't think we should freak out or nitpick if we don't like who the inductor is announced to be. That's really not important. What's important is Kurt is going into the Hall of Fame. It's much deserved. And I'm really happy to see him come back to the WWE and come back home. He tweeted that out. He said, I'm coming home. I have missed Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was one of those departures that just hurt me very badly. I just really was sad to see him go. It ranks right up there with Brett leaving or Randy Savage leaving. When Kurt left, I was like, seriously, Kurt Angle? You're leaving for TNA? Okay, fine. Go there for a year or two. We'll see you back in the WWE, I have no doubt. And he never came back. And even though Kurt Angle had great matches in TNA and internationally, I really felt as a fan I missed out on seeing Kurt Angle at his best because he wasn't in the WWE and, you know, he wasn't readily available for me to see and he wasn't exposed as much everywhere else he was. So I feel like I missed out on a lot of Kurt Angle's career. I've seen tons of his matches from TNA and tons of his stuff that he's done, but I never really followed him the way I would have had he stuck around in the WWE and I missed him. I can't wait to see the rest of the class when they are announced. There's a lot of rumors about DDP, of course, Ravishing Rick Rude. I've recently heard Christian, which would be fine. I think Christian is a Hall of Famer, sure. Beth Phoenix, so both of those guys have ties to Edge, so that would be fun to see all of them together. I'm actually holding out hope for Davey Boy Smith as well. I really want the British Bulldog to go in the Hall of Fame. The only problem with that is we already have one dead guy going in, Ravishing Rick Rude, and these two guys passed away just a couple of years apart. And I don't think that they would maybe do that and have two of them that have died, but I could be wrong. I mean, there's plenty of Hart family members out there. Davey Boy's son is still a wrestler. It would be nice if he could come back to the WWE and induct his father. Maybe they're waiting for that. Bret Hart still comes in and out and does things with them. Tons of Hart family members everywhere. Of course, Diana is very much alive and well, and she can come back and accept on his behalf. So he's got plenty of people that can be there for him, but I don't know if they want to have two passed away guys getting inductions to the Hall of Fame on the same year, especially if they do somebody that I'm hoping that they do and put in the celebrity wing, and that's Andy Kaufman. He's another guy that I don't know how much longer they can wait on this. I mean, Jerry Lawler is barely involved in WWE now as it is. They need to have him be a part of a big Andy Kaufman celebrity wing induction, I believe. I think it would be perfect. I'd love to hear Lawler tell the stories. Andy Kaufman is a guy that should have been in the celebrity wing a long time ago, especially when you think about some other people that are already in the celebrity wing, like Drew Carey and others. Andy Kaufman should have been one of the first motherfuckers in there. So I'm growing a little bit impatient with his induction, so I'm kind of holding out hope for him as well. So we'll see. Right now, with Kurt Angle headlining this thing, we already know the Hall of Fame is going to be pretty damn awesome and pretty damn solid. We also had the UK tournament took place over the weekend on the WWE Network. I watched probably 50% of it. I will be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing. I was very busy this weekend, plus there was a lot of football on. And I thought the tournament itself was fantastic. I loved everything about it. I loved the venue. I loved the look of it. I loved the crowd participation. You know, these are all hometown guys, so the crowd was very into them. They knew who these guys were. They were reacting well. The crowd made the whole show very, very fun. Plus, the wrestling was fantastic. I love the look of the UK title belt. It's actually a pretty belt that WWE seemed like they put some time and effort into making the damn thing look nice. I think I enjoyed it every bit as much as the Cruiserweight Classic. I mean, both of them were awesome in their own way, and both of them were very, very different. What I liked about the UK tournament a little bit better than the Cruiserweight tournament is that I felt like there was a little bit more storytelling in the UK tournament. You were kind of seeing who these guys were. I loved the final match with Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. Now, Tyler Bate, is he 19 years old? Am I hearing that correctly? Jesus Christ, he is a child. He is only as old as the Montreal Screwjob. That fucking blows my mind. And he's a champion in the WWE. And I will be honest, I'm not that familiar with a lot of these guys either. I mean, a lot of these guys I was seeing for the first time on the WWE Network, so I'm not that educated on their past and where they've worked before and how truly good or bad they are. To me, they all put on an awesome performance. What I liked about the final is that you kind of were getting the impression that Pete Dunne was going to win. It seemed like there was a lot of storytelling going on with him. They were talking about him constantly. They were kind of just building him up as the favorite. And so I was happy to see Tyler Bate, after the great showing he put on in all of his other matches, was able to eke out a victory here. It was a great match. I was semi-interested in the Tyson T-Bone character. I kind of liked his look and his attitude and his wrestling style. Still not sure what happened in the Danny Burch versus Jordan Devlin match. I know Jordan caught him with, I think, a kick to the back of the head, and it busted him open. And you go back and watch the finish, and I think the referee, as soon as he saw the blood, he got down there and he says, "Stay down, I'm going to count 3. And he did, but Burch kind of kicked out right before, but they counted the 3 count anyway, and it was just kind of an awkward finish. So I'm guessing with a lot of these guys, because they're not regular roster members, WWE staff and doctors don't know them that well. They probably have a little internal policy where if somebody gets seriously hurt, fucking stop the match immediately, don't take any chances. So as soon as the referee saw the blood, I think he knelt down and said, "Okay, you're going to get pinned," and Burch just kind of kicked out instinctively anyway. So all in all, I have to give the tournament a thumbs up and an A+, and I need to go back and watch a little bit more of it, and I'm definitely going to check out that UK television show whenever the hell that starts, and hopefully it will be a lot more successful than 205 Live is so far with the Cruiserweights. But props to everybody involved in that tournament. They put on a great showing. The wrestlers really showed what they are capable of and how popular and how awesome wrestling is over in the UK. That is a great wrestling market, a lot of awesome fans over there, and a lot of you listen to me as well. So let's start moving into Raw and SmackDown now, and we'll talk a little bit about Royal Rumble and WrestleMania as well. But before we do that, though, I do want to briefly mention real quick, to those of you who don't know, the popular YouTube channel, TVTrax. They run a lot of clips of other wrestling podcasts like The Solid Monster and Don Tony and Kevin Castle and a few others. They have started using some of my clips from my episodes. They put the first batch up a couple of days ago, I think maybe on Sunday. And a lot of you were really excited to see that, and so was I. So thank you to Trax for using some of my clips. It definitely gained me a few chunk of subscribers, and I think it's a really good way to help get my name out there. I can use all the help I can get right now with everything going on with YouTube. So go over there and show those clips some love. I haven't even taken a look at the comments. I don't know what people are saying. They're probably like, who the fuck is this guy or whatever. So who knows how brutal people are being to me over there. I have no idea. But I'm very much appreciative of Trax using my clips, and I think it's going to help me. So hopefully they will continue to use them moving forward. I will put a link to their channel in the description for those of you who might not know that it exists. It's an awesome channel. Lots of good 2 to 8 minute clips on there from an assortment of really great podcasts, so take a look. So that pretty much does it for the non-Raw and SmackDown news. We'll jump into Raw now finally. The show did open up, as usual, as it does every single year, with a nice, beautiful Martin Luther King tribute. WWE's been doing this ever since they started back in 1993. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the first Martin Luther King Day that also coincided with a WWE death. And that, of course, is we did lose Jimmy Superfly Snuka over the weekend as well. I uploaded a whole video about that on Sunday. The link is up in the top right-hand corner if you want to hear what I have to say about that. I pretty much only talk about his career, only mention the murder charges a couple of times. You know, it's a very controversial subject. A lot of people were wondering what WWE was going to do. They couldn't open up the show with a 10-bell salute because the opening of the show needed to go to MLK. So I was kind of thinking that they would wait and do a video package or do some sort of an acknowledgement to his death later on in the show, and that's exactly what they did. Michael Cole made the announcement. They went to a very nice video package. They showed some tweets from various wrestling personalities offering their condolences to his family and all of that. When the video package was over, he got some boos. I mean, it was some legit boos. I don't think we've ever seen that following a wrestler's death video package. I'm not sure if the crowd has ever booed before. That's got to be a first. But, you know, given the circumstances of Snuka, and yes, the murder charges were dropped, but it's pretty damn clear, given his past, that he was probably responsible for Nancy Argentino's death, and that's a really tough pill to swallow, to try to show the guy love somebody that's capable of murder or manslaughter, I guess is what it would have been. And some people were giving the WWE shit for it, but look, the charges were dropped. I guarantee you that if the charges were not dropped and Snuka was convicted of this murder, we would not have seen what we saw on Monday Night Raw. It was just something that the WWE felt like they had to do. Snuka's been a big part of their family, and look, this is not anything new. They've been using Snuka for years. He's been in and out of the WWE periodically for the last 30 years, so there's been plenty of times for them to blackball him or blacklist him. They've known about this the whole time, so for them to ignore him on his death but use him for the last 30 years, I think would be equally as shitty, and WWE really had no choice but to at least say something, and I don't think they went overboard with it. They didn't dedicate the entire show to Snuka and talk about what a great saint he was for 3 fucking hours or anything like that. They did what they needed to do, and they were as PC about it as they could be, and that was that. So hopefully now with Snuka being dead, it can give the family of Nancy Argentino a little bit of peace, and, my thoughts are with them as well. My thoughts are with them just as much as it is with Tamina or any other member of Snuka's family. So the wrestling business lost another great legend, unfortunately. This legend had a little bit of baggage, and it makes the whole thing a little bit different. So anyway, like I said, if you want to hear me talk more about Jimmy Snuka, just check out episode 402, a 10-minute video dedicated entirely to him. Moving on now to what actually took place and transpired on Monday Night Raw. I'm just going to kind of roll through some of this stuff. Now, the show opened with a Roman Reigns promo, which can never be good, but what I liked about Raw this week is that they gave us a break from Stephanie and Mick Foley. Unless I was half sleeping or I was out of the room and I missed one of them, I don't think either one of them was on the show. I don't even remember what the explanation was for why they were not there, but I don't give a shit. We got a break from them, and that's all I care about. Stephanie has been pretty much unbearable in recent weeks on Monday Night Raw. She is ruining Raw for me, and I'm a Stephanie McMahon fan. I've always said that she's a great heel, and I love her. Sometimes she can be the greatest character on WWE TV, but lately she is making an already bad Raw much, much worse. I know that her boss and authority figure type of character kind of dictates how her personality is, but sometimes I think the way she talks down to the men and the women just does not do anybody any favors at all, especially if there's no payoff. The maddest I got was when she completely just destroyed Charlotte. Charlotte, who I think could have a case for the greatest heel in the company. Stephanie couldn't have that, and she had to let the whole world know on Monday Night Raw that she can squash Charlotte anytime she wants. And that pissed me off because Charlotte is so strong. So I really just haven't enjoyed anything Stephanie McMahon has been doing. Mick Foley, sad to say, has not been much better. He's a little bit more tolerable than Stephanie because he's Mick, but at the same time, Mick hasn't really been lighting the place on fire either with his GM work. So I was just happy not to really have to deal with any of them this week on Raw, and it was a nice breath of fresh air. So even though Roman coming out and opening a promo to open the show wasn't the greatest thing, at least it was not Stephanie. So I can live with that. And the promo got nuts. Everybody came out there. Roman Reigns starts talking his shit. Typical kind of bland Roman Reigns promo. You know, the guy's not the greatest promo cutter, I'll give you that. And Paul Heyman comes out and interrupts. And did you see? I think Roman Reigns kind of botched. I think he reacted to Paul Heyman coming out before he was supposed to. Right in the middle of one of his sentences, he kind of jerked his head off towards the stage to kind of look up there, but nobody was coming. So he kind of spoiled that someone was going to come out there, but we shouldn't be surprised by that. And Paul Heyman comes out to the stage and starts walking down to the ring and tells everybody that Brock Lesnar is in the building. He's at Monday Night Raw. First time we have seen him since Survivor Series, and then he gets in the ring and starts talking more shit to Roman, and then Roman gets in his face. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens come down to the ring with microphones, and then Seth Rollins comes down and says that he's going to win the Royal Rumble. Braun Strowman's music hits, and he comes down, and as soon as he starts having a stare down with Roman Reigns, then you get Brock's music, and you're like, wow, this is great. This is what I've wanted to see ever since Brock came back like 5 years ago. I wanted to see him interact with as many new guys as possible. So he makes his way down to the ring and kind of just stands there looking at everybody, and then Sami Zayn jumps on Strowman's back and attacks him. Brock Lesnar then enters the ring and starts just suplexing everybody. He got Rollins, he got Reigns, he got Sami Zayn, and then he had the stare down with Braun Strowman, and that was awesome. I could very much get behind a potential Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman match in the future, and I like the little tease of it here. We could see an interaction with these two guys at the Royal Rumble. Strowman did back down. Brock was calling him into the ring, but Strowman didn't want anything to do with him, and as he's walking away, Roman catches Brock with a Superman punch, which Brock pretty much no-sells and gets right up and nails nails Roman with an F5 to kind of end the segment. So for me, Brock was what made that segment. I thought it was going to be interesting to see what his demeanor was going to be, since we haven't seen him since he was humiliated at the Survivor Series, but he came back just as badass as ever, just as fearless as ever, and literally beat the hell out of everybody. So now I'm really excited, and apparently him and Goldberg are supposed to be on a lot of Raws leading up to WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble, so expect to see these two guys a lot. And when you think about Goldberg and Brock and Strowman all in the Royal Rumble, and The Undertaker for that matter, it's stacked, man. It's going to be a really fun Royal Rumble. And apparently now it's anybody's game. I don't think The Undertaker is really favored to win it anymore. My argument in my last commentary was, why would they put The Undertaker at his age at this stage of his career in the Royal Rumble if he was not going to win it? And it was crazy. Right after I recorded last week's episode 401, that's when the internet stories started coming out that the WWE has changed their mind about the John Cena Undertaker match. And to me, that was the match that was probably going to happen and probably going to headline WrestleMania. Apparently, it's not going to be now. The story goes that Vince McMahon has changed his mind for some reason. They need to stop fucking changing their mind in mid-January. By the time you get to mid-January, you better have a pretty good goddamn idea of what you're going to do at WrestleMania. And this indecisiveness and them not knowing what the hell they want to do scares me a little bit, because it just makes WrestleMania a complete crapshoot. If WWE put half as much thought into their storylines as they did promoting the actual show of WrestleMania, I think it could be pretty good. But these stories of a match being penciled to happen and then Vince McMahon just randomly deciding that he doesn't want that anymore, it's just weird. What the fuck? So fine, no Cena and Undertaker, I can live with that. I don't care. I would just like to know what Vince McMahon's thought process was. I would like to know why he doesn't want to go with this match. And somebody, or I think it was the same story, had said that one of the reasons possibly that Vince canceled the match is because he wants WrestleMania to be focused more on WWE's future. He wants a lot of those matches to set up the future for WWE. Okay, great, that's fine. Well, then why the hell are you having Brock Lesnar and Goldberg? And why is that match now rumored to be the main event? Are you fucking crazy? I was fine with Survivor Series. That match should have main evented Survivor Series. And an argument can be made for it to main event WrestleMania as well, especially because of the squash at Survivor Series, and you really want to see how Brock is going to respond and what kind of a match they're going to have this time. So I can understand that that match can be talked about, but you can't in one breath say, oh, I want to focus on the future of the WWE, but at the same time, us as fans hear rumors of Brock and Goldberg main eventing WrestleMania. That makes no fucking sense. So I think the excuse is flimsy. Who knows why Vince doesn't want this match to happen anymore, and who knows what they're going to do now? Who else can face The Undertaker? And how do they set that up? Is this set up in the Royal Rumble? I think if John Cena and The Undertaker are not going to wrestle, there's no point in having The Undertaker win the Rumble, which means you can use him to get somebody over like Braun Strowman. Strowman could toss out The Undertaker and set up a match with Strowman and Taker. Don't know how good that would be at WrestleMania if those two wrestled, but you can tell with what WWE is doing with Strowman, they're building him as a big monster. I hope they're not just building him for him to get beat by The Undertaker, and I don't think The Undertaker is capable of tombstoning him. I don't know if Taker's going to be able to get him up. I suppose you could have Undertaker lose. I said that the year that he faced Bray Wyatt. I'm like, shit, the streak is already over. At this point, what's the difference if he loses another one or not? So maybe they put him in the ring with Strowman for him to get beat. The Undertaker could also face Roman Reigns. That's been another rumored match. Strowman and Reigns has been another rumored match, so I guess there's a lot they could do. So I'm not necessarily disappointed about the decision not to go with Cena and Undertaker anymore. I'm disappointed that the WWE doesn't know what the fuck they want to do yet. And WrestleMania is not the type of show that you can just throw together a couple of weeks in advance. You have to have your ducks in a row, idiots. The main event on Raw, by the way, was a big six-man tag with Strowman and Jericho and Owens taking on Rollins, Reigns, and Sami Zayn. And did they do the little backstage segment? I think I walked out of the room, but I saw the picture on Twitter where they were doing the shield fist thing and Sami Zayn was trying to do it and they were just kind of looking at him like he was crazy. I don't know why. I think Sami Zayn would be just as good a replacement for Dean Ambrose as anybody else. He's certainly a fearless, crazy motherfucker the way he's been attacking Braun Strowman left and right. So I don't think the team is any less strong with Sami Zayn in replace of Ambrose, so I kind of like the threesome. I'm like, these guys are going to be tough to stop. But they lost, which is good. Braun Strowman hit Zayn with what? The big power slam and just pinned him, asserting his dominance, and picked up Sami and threw him over his shoulder and walked him up to the ramp to put him through a table, I think. And the six-man match was great, by the way. There was a lot of good stuff in that match. Crowd was into it. This is awesome chance. Not a horrible main event for Monday Night Raw. And with Braun winning, I thought was great. Keep building him, keep building him, keep building him, as far as I'm concerned. And then they closed it with the big brawl. Braun takes Sami all the way up the ramp to the announce desk, and what I liked is like the final 3 minutes of Raw was completely quiet and silent from the announcer standpoint. They all scattered from the announce table, and there was no commentary for that final 3 minutes, and I liked it better. I like just watching the guys interact and do their thing without Michael Cole or Corey Graves or anybody screaming in your fucking ear. I thought it was a nice touch to the finish of Raw with Rollins and Reigns attacking and stopping Strowman from hurting Sammy anymore, and Strowman even took a really nasty spear from Roman Reigns. Roman looked like he caught him right in the face with a spear, and he landed right on that steel grating of the ramp, so that was pretty good. And then Rollins and Reigns want to have their chance to put somebody through a table, so they grab Strowman. Jericho and Owens interrupt that and stop that from happening, and the show ends with Kevin Owens powerbombing Roman Reigns through the table and standing over him, so Kevin Owens wins this week and gets the upper hand on Roman Reigns. And we've got one more week of build between the two. Next week is finally the go-home show. This feels like it's been taking forever for Royal Rumble to get here. It's right at the end of the month. So finally we're getting closer. So next week will be really interesting to see what they do on the go-home show. Right now, I'm still picking Roman Reigns. To me, he seems like the most obvious choice to win that match at the Royal Rumble. It's one-on-one. His whole promo on Raw is that nobody can beat him one-on-one. So unless Kevin Owens has another trick up his sleeve, unless Jericho gets out of that cage or somebody interferes on Owens' behalf, there's no way Owens is going to beat Roman Reigns. Which my plea to WWE is throw a swerve at us. Right now, most of us are expecting Roman Reigns to win. So if you can do something and surprise us and have Kevin Owens retain, that would be kind of pleasant to see. Now, if you still insist on putting the title on Reigns before WrestleMania, you can still do that. We have Fastlane coming up after that. So maybe from the standpoint of not being predictable, play with that match a little bit and see how fun you can get. As long as it stays fun and as long as it's a good match, I really don't care if Roman Reigns wins the title. But if it's boring and predictable, I'm not going to like it very much. Seems to me like the direction they're going is for Roman to enter WrestleMania as champion to defend the belt against somebody, possibly and probably Braun Strowman, or maybe whoever wins the Royal Rumble. And Jericho and Owens, I'm sure, are going to be wrestling for that US belt at WrestleMania. So that seems like the most likely plans right now. Hopefully WWE might change it up, tweak it, have some fun with it, so it's not so predictable for the Royal Rumble. But right now, I get used to that image of having a big red belt around Roman Reigns' waist. The rest of Raw was not horrible. Definitely not a good show. I mean, there was a lot of the show that I was criticizing on Twitter, and I was bored through a lot of it, and a couple times I got tired, but there were a few things on the show that I did like. I liked the main event. I liked the opening segment with Brock Lesnar. I loved the announcement of Kurt Angle going into the Hall of Fame, and hearing his music for the first time in years in the WWE was a mark-out moment for me as well. And there were a few other things that I liked too, and there was also some things that I didn't like. We did have a tag team title match. Sheamus and Cesaro defended the belts against Gallows and Anderson, and I actually thought maybe Gallows and Anderson would win the belts. I thought maybe they would win them and then defend them against Sheamus and Cesaro at the Royal Rumble, just to add some fun and excitement and maybe give Gallows and Anderson a short run since they've been coming up short in every tag team title match they've ever had. And I was not really interested in seeing them lose another tag team title match. But this time, they booked it a little bit differently. Gallows and Anderson actually won the match. One of them had knocked down the referee, I think, and then another referee came in as they were hitting their finisher and counted the 3, and they were announced as the new tag team champions, but the original ref kind of comes to and reverses the decision, or doesn't reverse it, he just changes the decision and gave Gallows and Anderson the victory by DQ because I think it was Cesaro or Sheamus that had knocked out the ref to begin with. So that was kind of cool because at least it keeps the feud going, and I guess they're going to announce that match for the Royal Rumble, you would think. I guess they could do it next week on Raw, but I think the most likely match will happen at the Rumble, and I would really like to see Gallows and Anderson win these belts. Finn Balor is getting healthier and healthier, and he's another possible rumored opponent for The Undertaker. I would love to see The Undertaker versus Finn Balor. Could you imagine those two entrances at WrestleMania, how epic that would be? I don't know how healthy Finn Balor is. I don't even know if there's time to get him on TV and build a match with Taker. But if for any reason there is, they should definitely do it. I hope we get Finn Balor back by WrestleMania. I should have mentioned him earlier on, but I'm really sick and tired of seeing Gallows and Anderson come up short because I want these guys strong when Balor comes back, because I'm hoping that they've just been spinning their wheels with these two guys until he gets healthy, and I'm hoping that they kind of do what they did with AJ and kind of form the Club or the Bullet Club or whatever on Raw. So if they keep coming up short time and time again in tag team title matches, that is not doing their characters any favors and is making them look weak. So hopefully if they have to have another match, they can actually win the titles. Cesaro and Sheamus have been teasing problems ever since they've got together. They don't even get along. I like the team, but I don't know how long they can hang on to the titles. I think they're probably going to build to a match at WrestleMania, perhaps, between the two, with something on the line. And I know I mention this all the time. People even make fun of me because I'm always mentioning scenarios where there's a loser leave town match or a loser leave the show match, but that would be a good match to have because we already saw them have a best of 7, and that was enough. So you can't just put these guys in a one-on-one match after they implode as a tag team at WrestleMania, because that doesn't solve anything, because we've watched them wrestle 100 times. So maybe they just can't get along. They're going to have a match. The loser leaves Raw and goes over to SmackDown or something like that. One of my favorite segments on Raw was actually Charlotte's promo. I'm a big Charlotte fan. I say that every week. She came out to kind of make fun of Bayley, and she puts all this shit up on the Titantron of Bayley back when she was a fan, meeting all these wrestlers, getting autographs, drawing pictures and writing poems, and just being a pathetic little fan, basically, is what she was calling her. And, a lot of us see ourselves in Bayley. Bayley's a girl that grew up obsessed with WWE, and she made her dream happen. You gotta give her props for that. A lot of fans that fantasize about being a WWE wrestler really never got off their ass or worked hard or got in shape or did anything to make their dreams happen, and Bayley did. So you gotta give her credit for that. But Charlotte just makes fun of what a childish, kind of immature type of fan she was, and just was cracking me up. I mean, Charlotte was having one of her weeks where, I've said this before, sometimes I just find her so attractive. I don't know what it is. And tonight, Charlotte really impressed me with her heel work. She's easily one of the best heels in the company. And Bayley came out there to run her off and interrupt her and kind of cut a lame-ass promo about, I made my dreams come true. How can you criticize that? And Charlotte was just being a douchebag. And that's what I like about Charlotte. For anybody out there that says, oh, Charlotte's only on top because of who her father is, that's ridiculous. Having Ric Flair as a father definitely isn't going to hurt you in the wrestling business, but it's not the reason that Charlotte is on top. Charlotte is on top because she is probably the best, most well-rounded female wrestler that the business could possibly have ever seen. She's a great character, she's amazing on the mic, and she's amazing in the ring. And she's an athlete. She's a fucking athlete. I believe that she deserves every bit of her push. This is not a Roman Reigns type of scenario where WWE is just hell-bent on pushing Charlotte, and she's not connecting with the fans, and she's boring, or any of this stuff. These are not issues that we have with Charlotte. Charlotte is going to be my female version of the Shield. Remember back in the Shield days, I used to mark out for them all the time because I just thought they were so awesome. I have that same opinion of Charlotte. The more she wins, the bigger my erection gets. Speaking of women, Nia Jax and Sasha had an interesting segment as well. Now, this wasn't that great, but I just liked that it was a little bit different. It's actually something that I don't recall seeing before. I could be wrong. But I guess they ran the angle earlier on in the day. Sasha's just working out in the ring. She had been selling that leg injury, and she's wrestled since then, but I guess, every week she's kind of got to work out for the doctors, and they can check her out and make sure she's good to go from one week to the next. So she's in there just running the ropes, and it's before Raw. It's hours before the show. There's just people kind of standing around the ring, casually hanging out, and then Nia Jax just jumps in there and beats the shit out of Sasha during her workout routine, which I'm surprised WWE has never filmed a segment like this before. To me, at least, that was different. We had a lot of stupid shit on Monday Night Raw too, namely the New Day promo. Getting tired of the New Day. They're not tag team champs anymore. Might as well break them up at this point. There has been talk of a Big E heel turn or something like that. And you know what I would like to see with the New Day? I would like to see them be numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the Royal Rumble. Don't you think that would be cool? Think about it. They already broke Demolition's record for the longest reigning tag team champions in history. You know what else Demolition did? They started the very first pay-per-view Royal Rumble in '89. They were numbers 1 and 2. So I think this year, right after New Day breaks Demolition's record, they should enter 1, 2, and 3 into the Rumble, and they should have, the three of them should go at it for a couple of minutes. I think that would be a lot of fun and a really fun way to kick off the Royal Rumble. And of course, we have to have Kofi do something insane in that Rumble to save elimination. Like, he's got to do a headstand on a chair and wheel his ass over back to the steps and get back in the ring after being tossed out or something. But their promo on Raw was pretty typical New Day stuff, puts a smile on your face, but at the same time, we've seen it a zillion times. And Titus O'Neil comes out and then winds up having a match with Big E, and there was some spanking involved, and it just sucked. Who even won that match? Big E did, right? So that was a pointless segment. We had some cruiserweight stuff. Cedric Alexander beat Kendrick with a little bit of help from Alicia, who kind of came out there. Of course, Cedric dumped her. She went completely apeshit after he dumped her, and then helps him win this match, and he kind of looks appreciative, and then just kind of disses her and dodges a hug and jumps out of the ring. I have not been keeping up with 205 Live, to be honest with you, so I don't know what the two of them are doing on that show. I've kind of made a little internal rule to myself that I'm not going to start watching 205 Live religiously unless I'm just in the mood for some wrestling, or there's a title match that's booked for that show, or something big happens, or it just starts picking up some steam. If 205 Live starts getting over, fans start talking about it, and it creates the same kind of buzz that something like NXT does, then I'll start watching it a little bit more. But for right now, all I can commit to is just eyeballing it, reading the results, and watching a great match if I happen to hear about it. Probably the best part of the Cruiserweight division right now is Neville and his current heel turn and what he's doing. He attacked Rich Swann again on Monday Night Raw before he even had his match with Tony Nese. And he just beat the hell out of him. Tony Nese tries to get involved, and Neville disposes of him too. So I really like Neville. He's just a badass. He cut a promo backstage, basically like, fuck everybody. And he's kind of believable for like a little guy, a cruiserweight guy. He's very strong, and he's very mean, and he doesn't give a shit. And he's talented and athletic as hell. And he's got a cruiserweight match with Swann at the Royal Rumble. You gotta think Neville is going to take that belt. I want him to. I think that would be fun. I mentioned earlier when the cruiserweight division first started that I thought maybe the cruiserweight title should change hands a little bit more because it's a different style, it's a different belt, and it's a different division, and you got to keep that belt moving just to keep things fresh. But I think Neville could be an exception. I hope he goes into the Royal Rumble, and I know they got to get their shit in. I know they got to do some red arrows and some flips and spins and all that stuff, but I would love to see essentially a squash in this match. I would like to see Neville dominate Rich Swann. Maybe the match goes 4 minutes, 5 minutes. They both get a chance to do some flips, but at the end of the day, Neville basically kicks the shit out of Rich Swann, pins him, wins the title, and retains the title all the way up until like SummerSlam. And then have him run into an awesome opponent, have him drop that belt to a guy with a great reputation that's very over, that the fans are into. Maybe they can bring in Kota Ibushi, maybe some other great unsigned talent that's still out there. Bring in somebody to dethrone Neville after a great, long, strong run full of great matches and great title defenses all through the spring and summer, and then have him drop that match at a big show. I think that could help the value of the title. I mean, I don't think it would hurt at this point. They've tried hot potato. How many cruiserweight champions have they had since the tournament? 3, right? They've had TJ and Brian Kendrick and now Rich Swann. That belt's been jumping around a lot. It's not helping the division get any more popular. So why don't you just have Neville go on an unstoppable heel run? Killing everybody, having a few close calls, having some great matches, and some really hard-fought title defenses where he just barely wins and shit like that, but just keep him dominant. Let him be the Charlotte of the Cruiserweight division. So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on Raw. Let's move into SmackDown now. Still finding the show much easier to watch than Raw. I mean, SmackDown has so much less filler and bullshit, and it's just... to me, the show just flows better and actually does feel like it has a different identity to it. There's a different feel to SmackDown, and I like it. Shane opens the show this week, so no Daniel Bryan, and he's got a couple of announcements. One of those is that the Elimination Chamber is coming back. I had not heard about this yet. I'm not surprised, but I guess they're going to go back to the way it was before they unified the belts back in 2013 or whatever it was, and so the Elimination Chamber is going to be back in February and will be a SmackDown pay-per-view, and Shane announced that the WWE title will be defended in the Elimination Chamber match itself in the main event, which does not please AJ Styles. He comes out to protest this, tells Shane that he hasn't even been in the WWE that long. He's never even been in an Elimination Chamber match, and if he beats John Cena at the Royal Rumble, now he's got to go in and face 5 or 6 other guys in the chamber, so he's pissed. This was a pretty entertaining segment, and I think I liked the opening of SmackDown a little bit better than the opening of Raw, even though Raw had Brock, and Raw had a stare down between Brock and Strowman, and Roman Reigns got F5'd. I just kind of got a little bit more of a kick out of this one, because John Cena and The Miz got involved. I think Cena came out first to interrupt AJ, who's whining and bitching to Shane McMahon. And then The Miz shows up, and you gotta think he's gonna be in the Elimination Chamber match, and he starts jawing with Cena and AJ, and actually cuts a really good promo. I mean, I am so Team Miz right now. He's been doing some great stuff, and I liked his promo this week on SmackDown much better than the seizure that he had on Talking Smack a couple of weeks back when he lost the Intercontinental title. In that promo, I felt like he was trying too hard. He got a lot of praise for that promo, but I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was overacted. I thought he was acting way too outrageous, and it wasn't believable for somebody that should be as mad as he was. That's not how people behave, and I think he was just trying too hard. But this promo this week on SmackDown was great. Talked about how he was beating John Cena 6 years ago, made fun of AJ's southern accent, and was basically just owning the microphone. And what I liked also was that John Cena was pretty funny in this. He was kind of instigating shit between Miz and AJ, like, oh snap, no he didn't, you gonna let him talk to you like that. So it kind of gave me a little bit of a chuckle, and Shane McMahon says, fine, if you guys want at it so much, we'll have this match kick off SmackDown, The Miz versus AJ Styles and John Cena. You can go sit your ass down and do some guest commentary during the match. So that's the match that opened the show. I think it just ended in a no contest. I believe The Miz threw AJ into Cena at the announce table, and then they all started brawling together, and Cena, I think, hit the AA on both The Miz and AJ Styles, and then stood over AJ and held up the WWE title belt. So John Cena got the last laugh on this week's SmackDown. As far as what we're going to see at the Royal Rumble between the two, I still think that Cena is the most likely possibility to win the WWE title, although just like what I talked about with Kevin Owens earlier, Cena seems like he's the obvious choice, the predictable choice, just like Roman Reigns. I can't believe we might actually have a pay-per-view where Cena and Reigns are both going to walk out with title belts, so maybe WWE can swerve us a little bit here, because whoever wins between Cena and AJ now has to defend in the Elimination Chamber, so there's all sorts of shit that can happen here. Now, I pitched weeks back if the WWE was going to do the Undertaker versus John Cena match at WrestleMania. It doesn't look like they're going to do that now, but if they did go back to that, you could have John Cena win the belt at the Royal Rumble and then drop it at the Elimination Chamber, especially if he's in there with a half a dozen guys. It keeps Cena strong. He doesn't have to lose face. You know, he can lose the belt in a situation where the odds were highly stacked against him, and then he can get that 16th title run, go off and do another TV show or movie or whatever the hell, and then when he comes back, you can build towards breaking the record, so that could work. You could also have AJ Styles retain at the Royal Rumble, which I would love, because I really want to see AJ go into WrestleMania as champion. He has got a steep hill to climb, and he's going to have to survive two really tough title defenses if he's going to make it to WrestleMania as champion, but if there's some way that he can go into Mania as champion, that would be great. Maybe he does retain at the Royal Rumble and beat Cena somehow, but he drops it at the Elimination Chamber. What's cool about that is that could keep AJ in the mix for WrestleMania. He could still be involved in a title match. So maybe they'll do a triple threat. Maybe and hopefully, no matter what happens at the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber, AJ will still be involved in a title match at WrestleMania. You would have to think he's gotta be, right? I mean, he is one of the major players on SmackDown. He is the cornerstone. He is the backbone of that brand right now. How can you not have AJ Styles in the title match? So I think no matter what happens, AJ Styles will be involved and wrestling for a WWE title, you know, for the foreseeable future. At least that's my hope. I'm also curious about The Miz. I would love to see him get a run with the world title in 2017. I definitely think he's earned it, but I'm still a little bit suspicious about what he's going to do at WrestleMania, and if there's any possibility at all that he could still do something with Daniel Bryan. Somebody tweeted me either an idea or a picture, I can't remember where I heard this, but I thought it was brilliant. And what if, during the Royal Rumble, the buzzer goes off and Daniel Bryan's music hits, and 70,000 people shit their pants, and the roof completely blows off the Alamo Dome, and then out walks The Miz. Can you imagine how fucking epic that would be? I mean, you talk about the ultimate trolling of not only the fans, but Daniel Bryan as well. That would just be brilliant. However, it's kind of pointless if Daniel Bryan's never going to get in the ring and get his revenge on The Miz. For everything that's been going on between the two of them for this past year, it seems like WWE might be secretly holding back information that they are going to let Daniel Bryan at least wrestle one match, and he can face The Miz at WrestleMania and kick the shit out of him or whatever. I'm really hoping there's a chance that that could happen. And if it does, that could be a perfect way to set it up with The Miz getting so much heat playing Daniel Bryan's music. I would hate to think that The Miz is giving Daniel Bryan so much shit and he's never going to be able to physically get his revenge on The Miz. I don't know where the payoff is supposed to be. So hopefully we're going to see something between the two of them this year and maybe even at WrestleMania. If not, and my suspicions of Daniel Bryan are completely unfounded and he's never going to wrestle again, then have The Miz do something else. Put him in a triple threat match at WrestleMania for the WWE title. Throw him in there with AJ and Cena or something like that. Hell, have him win the belt if you want. I think 2017 could be a good year for The Miz to right a lot of his wrongs from 2011 when he was WWE champion. I think he has a chance to really redeem himself, especially in the eyes of the fans, because his work right now is pretty damn good. You got to give the guy credit. We had more good stuff between Nikki Bella and Natalya as well. Nikki came out to cut a promo, and then Natalya interrupted her in the audience, and she was standing up on the stairs, and she goes back into the concessions area and finds the merchandise stand and starts bitching and yelling, and she's doing great. I mean, this is the most interested I've been in Natalya in a long time, and she's pointing at all the merchandise. Where's my merchandise? Look, Nikki Bella is sitting right up there next to her boyfriend John Cena. Their shirts are side by side. My fucking uncle, my ex-uncle. She turns on Bret Hart, for fuck's sake. He's got a t-shirt t-shirt hanging up in the merchandise stand. And she goes, why does my moron uncle have a t-shirt and I don't? So she's pissed off and she's going crazy. Nikki Bella starts running through the audience and tries to get to her during this whole promo. And she doesn't see her coming. Nikki Bella emerges through the hallway and then just kind of tackles Natalya. They fall through what clearly was a gimmick table because they basically just fell on it and it broke. Sasha and Charlotte couldn't break one of these things in the Hell in the Cell, and Nikki and Natalya just fall through one. It looked kind of stupid, but the brawl was still good. A lot of scratching, a lot of hair pulling, a lot of good stiff punches, and I liked it. It was just a good overall piece of business between the two. The referees and security were all there for the big pull apart, and it's an angle that's not bad. I mean, considering how Nikki Bella has never really been respected in the eyes of the fans, probably still isn't, but at least this current storyline and her being on SmackDown and working with Natalya in an angle like this, I think is good for her. It's another dimension of Nikki, and it's allowing her to spread her wings a little bit. Is this match announced for the Royal Rumble? I don't even know. I'm curious if these girls are going to work a match together. I know there's room on the card to add another match or two because this is a 4-hour show. So they might put Nikki and Natalya on there if they have not announced that already. If not, they might wait until Elimination Chamber or just do something on SmackDown. But hopefully whatever the payoff is and whatever the blow-off is between these two girls will be good. At this point, I wouldn't rule out seeing Brett come back either, especially with the way Nikki and Natty have been working him into the storyline. He's good friends with John Cena. They can probably bring him back to TV. Maybe Natalya attacks Bret Hart and puts him in the sharpshooter. Can you imagine that? And Nikki Bella runs out to make the save. I mean, I doubt they would do that. Bret would probably never go for that, but they might. We also had more dissension with the Wyatt family, unfortunately. Dean Ambrose had requested that Shane McMahon give him a match with Randy Orton, and Shane granted the request. And the Wyatt family is at ringside, and Ambrose beat Randy Orton with a roll-up, pinned him. Another miscue with Luke Harper. He was up on the apron or in the ring somehow, and it was able to cause enough distraction for Ambrose to roll up Orton, and then there had to be the big separation. Bray had to get in between Orton and Luke Harper before they tried to kill each other. So really nothing has changed from last week. They're still just teasing the eventual implosion of the Wyatt family. A little bit sad for me because Luke Harper has just recently come back, and I liked Randy Orton's transformation into the Wyatt family. It was a little bit interesting to me, and especially when him and Bray won the tag team belts, that was something I thought that they could at least run with for a couple of months, but they ended it really early, and now they're teasing all this dissension, and now the Wyatt family is going to split up. I think Luke Harper would be great in a singles role. I just think they should have waited a little bit longer to do it, so whenever they finally do this, I don't know who's going to be the heel and who's going to be the babyface, and hopefully they're not just going to break up Luke Harper and Randy Orton just for Randy Orton to RKO and pin Luke Harper in their very first match together. So whatever they do here, I hope that it benefits Harper because Bray and Randy are already pretty big stars. If you can get Luke Harper up to that point as well, I think that would be really good. So I guess a triple threat at WrestleMania is not out of the question either with the Wyatt family. Jerry the King Lawler ironically showed back up on TV, just as I was talking about him not being around very much when I was mentioning Andy Kaufman's potential induction of the Hall of Fame. He's back on SmackDown with an old King's Court episode. We haven't seen one of these in a while, and he was even wearing his old 90s, like 1993 WWE King outfit, which was crazy to see him in that, and kind of took me back to nearly a time that was 25 years ago. And this got good. This was another opportunity for Dolph to show what a douchey heel he has turned out to be. He actually took credit for Jerry Lawler's heart attack, because I think he had a match with him. Was it the same week? I forgot how it all went down, but Ziggler was like nailing Lawler with a couple of elbows, and then Lawler had the heart attack, and Ziggler basically said it was because of him that Lawler almost died. Lawler was even on Talking Smack later on, which I caught a glimpse of, and he was saying how the elbows from Dolph Ziggler kind of knocked his heart off a rhythm or whatever, and that's what caused the heart attack. So I thought that was a really interesting way to get Dolph Ziggler some heat, and he even super kicked Jerry Lawler right in the chest. They let Jerry Lawler get a little bit physical and playing off the heart attack, and Ziggler super kicked him in the chest. Jesus. What if this was real life and that triggered a heart attack and Jerry Lawler died right there in the ring? Jesus, could you imagine? So I think trying to murder Lawler twice should be a sufficient amount of heat for Ziggler for whatever they do with him moving forward. Part of me thinks that it's kind of too little too late for Dolph Ziggler, and I don't know if he can really have a credible or believable world title run at this point, but this heel turn of his is a good start, and maybe 2017 can hold some big things for Dolph Ziggler, so I guess the jury is still out. Finally, the main event of SmackDown was a women's match that was announced last week, Steel Cage match, Alexa Bliss defending against Becky Lynch. Now, the point of the Steel Cage apparently was to keep La Luchadora out. We know there's been a bunch of La Luchadors, including Alexa herself. And I found the whole thing ridiculous because if Luchadora wants to get involved, she can. A cage match is not going to keep her out, especially when the object of the match is to escape the cage. So as Becky and Alexa are trying to inch towards the door, the referee has to open the door. And sure enough, near the end of the match, La Luchadora stands in the doorway when the referee opens it and blocks Becky Lynch from coming out. It's a cage match, so there's no disqualification. The referee can't do anything about it. Alexa nails Becky Lynch with a DDT and pins her, and then reveals La Luchadora to be none other than Mickie James. We had a feeling it might be Mickie James. We know she's coming back and is re-signed with the WWE and is going to be working the SmackDown brand, so we've been expecting her. And the fact that she's La Luchadora, I'm fine with it. A little bit predictable, but I don't care. Mickie looks awesome. I'm glad to see her back. She's aligned herself, I guess, with Alexa Bliss. Maybe Alexa is her protege. Maybe Mickie is the one that's been secretly teaching her behind the scenes, and that's why she's excelled so quickly and succeeded so fast and is the women's champion. And I liked it. I'm a big Alexa Bliss fan, except for her ring name. I pretty much like everything about her. I think she is only going to get better. Can you imagine in like 3 years how great she's going to be on the mic? She's already pretty good now, and it's going to be really fun to see her evolve. She's a really fun little women's wrestler to watch. I like her a lot. So I was fine with the finish. Wasn't ready for them to put the belt back on Becky at this point. Keep it on Alexa. And who knows, since they already have a shark cage hanging over the Royal Rumble anyway, maybe you can have a match with Becky and Alexa for the title and put Mickie James in the cage. So there you have it. That is your Raw and SmackDown in a nutshell. Of course, next week will be the Royal Rumble go-home shows, so both Raw and SmackDown will have to finish strong, hopefully, going into the Royal Rumble. And I'm excited for it. We're only 2 weeks away. I have my whole day planned out on Sunday. I have cleared my schedule for Sunday and Monday, the 29th and 30th, to be home all day to watch the Royal Rumble and live tweet with all of you and drink some beer and do a big reaction commentary when it's over. You might even get 3 commentaries in a row from me. Who knows? If the Royal Rumble is really huge and then we have a big fallout on Monday Night Raw and a big fallout on SmackDown, I might come up and do a separate commentary for all 3 shows. So I've still got that pay-per-view review coming to you as well. I'm a little bit behind on it, but I'm going to try to finish it up this weekend and get it to you a good week before the Royal Rumble pay-per-view on the 29th. So keep a lookout for that in the next couple of days, and you should hear from me pretty soon. So you guys let me know all your thoughts on the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and Raw and SmackDown and Kurt Angle and Jimmy Snuka and anything else you want to talk about. Feel free to drop it in the comments below. Have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you in just a few days. Until next time, peace.